Hello and welcome to Bible Time, or Origin of Concepts. Because in this episode, I'll talk a little about biblical Jerusalem uh, from the Bible stories. And it all started with the Canaanite city Salem, later Jebus, the Jebusite city and stronghold of Zion, which was captured by King David and thereafter known as the City of David, a capital in Jerusalem. It all culminated with the appearance of a heavenly new Jerusalem. And I'm very sorry to tell you out there, to all the believers of the Bible stories or literalists, that all the places are fictional, mythological places in the Bible narrative, and the biblical Jerusalem has never, ever existed as a real geographic city on this earth. And that's a promise. Because the entire Bible narrative is made with inspiration of the Milky Way center. So let's take a look at the Milky Way center here. And first of all the cities and areas are based on the striped shadow and the surrounding area within the dark shadows in the Milky Way center. So all the biblical cities can be found here inside this section. And Jerusalem is based on the striped shadow here. This is all the towns and the gates. So here you got Jerusalem. But as always, let's read some key features and some Bible text to back up my crazy idea. Or maybe it's the literalists reading the Bible that is crazy. You decide. I'm only here to tell you where things origin from. Jerusalem is a city placed in the promised land, flowing with milk and honey. And you already know where to find Jerusalem, so now we need to find the milk and the honey. And let me start with the milk up here. The milk from the big breast in the Milky Way center. And this is a very, very old milky breast used in the myths and stories long before the Abrahamic religions. So here you got the milk. And then I'll give you 3 seconds to find out where to find the honey. Because the honey is the golden disk light, the spirit light from the golden disk in the Milky Way center, flowing into Jerusalem or the striped shadow into the mortal world, so we can obtain wisdom and spirit. Okay, so let's go to some Bible stories and see if they can back up my claims here in the land of milk and honey with Jerusalem in the sky. Because in Revelation 21/12 says the city has a high wall with 12 gates and 12 angels at the gates, and the name of the 12 tribes of Israel written on them. Okay. And it's no surprise that the wall around the city is the striped shadow here. And if you have seen some of my other videos, the striped shadow making an arch or a crescent. And it surrounds the city, so to speak, like the crown surrounds the head. The crown of King David, maybe. Who knows? And this is the city wall. And it also contains 12 angels. And 12 is just, it's a biblical number. Those stripes here can represent 12 or 8, mostly 8, and 7 is very famous. But, all kind of between, 12 is the highest, and I think 7 or 6 is the lowest in the world myth. But it's all based on the stripes here, or the lines in the stripe shadow. But let's find the angels, because the angels is always the pair of stripes here with their wings unfold. So here you got 3 angels, but it's an allegory. There's 12 because it has to be 12. And then the names of the 12 tribes of Israel is written on them. And this is the tablet, stone tablet in the sky, and this is the writings. The stripe shadows is always the writings. And there's 12 stripes, and the stripes represents the 12 tribes of Israel. That's the entire idea of 12 tribes, because that's also an ancient idea, origin from ancient Egypt and the 9 bows. And then the Bible writers invent 12 tribes. And in Norse mythology, you got the 9 realms of Yggdrasil. And you got, in every single culture, ancient culture around the world, the stripes here is realms you have to go through to obtain wisdom, or when you die, you have to go through a number of worlds to end inside the spirit light here, the golden disc. So the same is about the 12 tribes of Israel. All right. And the city itself is described as pure gold, like clear glass. Well, let me explain why the city is of pure gold. Because here you got the city, the striped shadow, and the golden disc here, the light emerging from the golden disc is flowing through the city. If you mute it here, you can see the golden light, goes through the striped shadow, so that's the golden town. But it's also clear like glass. And let us see here. Now you know that what the gold is. And here you got the glass. This is always the glass, or the mirror rooms, or the lake, the still water. So here you got this description. Let's move on. The New Jerusalem, described in Revelation 21/16, is characterized as a perfect, massive cube. And the cube is an allegory of the black cube, the rock, the dark shadows, and the striped shadow. And let me draw it for you here, because this is the pyramid in the sky, the dark shadows outlining the Milky Way center. This is also used as inspiration for building the Egypt pyramids. And then we got the rock or the stone, which is the striped shadow here. So this is the surface of the stone. And then, of course, you have to imagine what they are doing, of course, because that's the cube, also known as the black cube. And if you want to know more about the black cube, I just uploaded a video on the Black Cube. So go watch that and you will understand exactly why Jerusalem is the cube. Because the cube is like the road to wisdom, so to speak. But go watch it. And then I'll move on here. The book of Nehemiah and Lamentations described Jerusalem or portrayed Jerusalem as a city in disrepair with broken walls and burned gates. Okay, so you know the walls is the striped shadow and it looks like a tear down or a teared down wall or a broken wall. And the gate is of course let me find another color here. The gates is the stripes and the stripe shadow. The gates and the wall is the same thing. And you already know why it is burning, because the light from the golden disc is flowing through the striped shadow. So here you got the burning gate. Yeah. And then we go to another statement that Jerusalem is the throne of God. And yes, it is. I agree. Because the entire Milky Way center is the throne. And here you got the seat. And here you got the handles on the throne. So this is the throne of God. And this is the throne in every single mythology mentioning thrones. And it is much, much older than the oldest Bible story. So here you got the throne, or why Jerusalem here is the throne in heaven, or throne of God, sorry. Revelation 21:21 states, the 12 gates were 12 pearls, each gate made of a single pearl. Well, that's a easy peasy one, because the pearl is the pearl in the Milky Way center. That's the single pearl. And then, it's made as an allegory. Again, you have to make 12 pearls. The stripes here in the striped shadow are the 12 pearls. But pearls also have deeper meaning, because inside the striped shadow we got a lot of colored stars, pearls. The gems in the Milky Way center, also used to put in the king's crown, on the all kinds of jewelry, dresses, finger rings, full of colored jewels. And that's the colored stars in the striped shadow here. And this is also the 12 pearls from the Bible, or the 12 pearls at the gates of Jerusalem. They are sitting in the gate here. All right. And let's move on to Golgotha, or Calvary, which means place of the skull, just outside Jerusalem, the site of crucifixion, just outside the city walls. And of course, this Golgotha, the skull cap is the area here above the disc. This is the skull cap, and this concept origins from Ptah in Egypt. He's wearing the skull cap, and you can go see my Ptah video to learn more about that. But this is the skull, and by the way, this is the jawbone with the teeth, for another story about the cranium, and the skulls and the But there is more, because Golgotha is a place just outside the town or outside the city walls. And yes, I agree. 100%. Right on the outside of the city wall. And yeah, and it's here the crucifixion, or Jesus is put on the cross. And that's because the cross represents the dark shadows here, crossing exactly where the golden disc light, or the light of the world, is getting crucified. So here you got it all. Let's move on. A wall of fire. Yeah, Jerusalem got a wall of fire around it. And just to make it quickly, here you got the wall of fire. We already going through that earlier. And then we got the 12 foundations of the city wall are garnished with 12 various precious stones. And again, the precious stones, there's 12 of them. Again, 12, 12, 12. You see all the colored stars in between the city walls. So I don't think we need to go into deeper details with that. Solomon's temple is placed in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, the Temple Mount. And then your thoughts is going direct to Palestine, But no, it should go up. Because Mount Moriah is, of course, the Milky Way center here. This is Mount Moriah. And the temple is, of course, the striped shadow here. We can try to make it look like a temple. And some pillars here, whatever. The pillars, by the way, is also the stripes and the striped shadow. But I'll make a video about that. So here you got the Solomon's temple. And the inner room in Solomon's temple, the sacred room, is of course the room here with the golden spirit light and wisdom. And it's also here the Ark of the Covenant is placed. And go watch my video about the Ark of the Covenant to get more info. So, yeah, that's it. That's all you need to know right now in this Jerusalem video. I'll also make a video of Solomon's temple, which is coming up soon. So let's move on. Revelation 21:22. The city has no physical temple building because the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. Well, yeah. We can't talk about who God is or are because, he is impossible to, or she is, or it is impossible to outline or draw because that's like an idea. But we can find the little lamp, which is, of course, the white part here. The lamb sacrificed on the fire here, and the wood for the fire is the striped shadow here. So here you see the sacrifice of the lamb of God. But I'll also tell you another thing you maybe don't know, because this area in the Milky Way center is also the void, the place where God, is manifested into the golden light. So he goes through the lamp, so to speak, and manifests as golden light, which becomes a little sun here in a cave. And then you can go watch some of my other videos to get the rest, to get more details. But that's why, the lamp is mentioned as the temple of El, the manifestations, so to speak, of God. Oh, yeah, you can look it up. All right. So let's move on here to the Galatians 4:26. Paul describes the Jerusalem above as free and the mother of us all, contrasting it with the earthly Jerusalem, which he associates with bondage. Oh, and I tell you, this is cryptic, but there's always an explanation of the babbling of the Bible. First of all, the mother of us all. When we speak more than one person in the Bible, it's always the crowd here. So this is the all of us. And the mother of us all is, of course, the silvery shadow here with the female posture. And the striped shadow is actually her womb. So here we got our mother, or the mother of us all. And now comes the crazy part, because it's contrasting. The mother is pure spirit. So this is the untouched, human, the perfect human, so to speak, The unmanifested spirit is the mother. But then it's contrasting with the earthly Jerusalem, which is the striped shadow here. This is also always the earth in ancient textures and mythologies. This is always the earth here, because the striped shadow is the path between heaven and earth. And the golden disc here is heaven, or basically, this is heaven. And the striped shadow is earth. So, and when you are on earth, you are in bondage. And this is exactly what the striped shadow is. It's the bondage of man. And let me show you the man here. And this is the body of the man. It is always. And the stripes in here is the bondage of man. And the bondage is also the bondage of the mummy in ancient Egypt. Human bondage in the material world, so to speak. So that was a clever line in the Bible there. But I like it. But no one understands it, because most are reading the Bible literal. So, but here you got it. The mummy in the sky, the man in bondage. And, or the dead man, so to speak, who needs to be enlightened or get wisdom. Then let's move on here. The bride, because Jerusalem is also the bride. In Revelation 21:2 reads, "And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God, out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband." And let me just outline the city again here of Jerusalem. Here. And then let's outline the bride, because she's standing right here and Jerusalem is, the groom, so to speak. It's it's the girl, it's the city of the bride. Yeah, and you can see it all here. The city of the bride, or the mother city. And what else does it write here? No, that was all. I think you got it. And in Jerusalem, they need a water source to, a city without water, will not last long. And because the city was, and because the city was located on a hill away from major rivers, it relied on a complex water system, including the Gihon Spring, or Hezekiah's Tunnel, and the Pool of Siloam. And let me show you where to find those three objects. The spring is the striped shadow, and let me use some blue colors. This is the spring of water. The striped shadow is always the flood in the myths. And then you got the pool up here of Siloam. Which is, by the way, also the Sea of Galilee. If you have wondering of that little lake. And then we got the Hezekiah's Tunnel, which is, of course, the striped shadow here. This is always the tunnel systems. Also, it comes from Greek mythology, where the dwarfs is digging tunnels to get the gold. And this is, of course, used here to make a waterway. And by the way, some of the story is also loaned or copycat from the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. So, just to mention it. Okay, we also got the Mount of Olives, which is located to the east of Jerusalem. And yeah, it is. Because here we got Jerusalem, and east of Jerusalem we got the Mount of Olives here. And the reason why it's named the Mount of Olives is because this part of the Milky Way center here is olive green when you look up there. And the green color appears because the golden disc light here runs through the shadows and make this olive green color. So therefore, it's the Mount of Olives. And by the way, the olive trees is the stripes here in the striped shadow. And this is the olive oil used for everything to lamps, to get fire in the lamp, or for building, things and stuff. So now you know. Let's move on. The gates, specific gates, sheep gate, water gate, mentioned in the Bible, served as entry points and administrative centers in Jerusalem. And we already been there, but I'll outline it again. The sheep gate is, of course, the sheep here, the white sheep gate. And the water gate is, of course, the striped shadow here, the water gate, because that's the river in the sky. So here you got the two gates, the sheep gate and the water gate, mentioned in the Bible. Let's move on. Christians used labyrinths laid in cathedral floors as a Chemin Jerusalem, road to Jerusalem. So to enter Jerusalem, you have to go through the labyrinth or maze, and yeah, that's obvious because if you want to obtain enlightenment or wisdom, then of course you have to move through the labyrinth here, the striped shadow. That's a long and rough way to obtain wisdom. And for my own, my way took like more than 20 years. so yeah, I agree. You have to pass the labyrinth to come to the inner sanctum of the temple. Yeah. And by the way, this labyrinth thing is a direct plagiarism of the Cretan labyrinth for King Minos to imprison the Minotaur in Greek mythology. There's also other cultures around the world using the maze or labyrinth, but the Bible writers, they copied directly from ancient Greek. No doubt about that. But I'll leave it up to you. Okay, and I could go on and on this way through all the Bible descriptions of Jerusalem and other details, because the entire Bible is written on aspects of the Milky Way Center. If I got the time, I could translate an entire new Bible, word for word, but it will be like whatever. I'll need more than one life to do that. So, Jerusalem in the Promised Land. Jerusalem here. Where is my pen here? Jerusalem in the Promised Land, flowing with honey and milk. Here is placed in the Milky Way Center. And there it will stay until our galaxy implodes someday in a couple of billion years. It gets sucked into itself. Because the center of the Milky Way is this spot here, right in the golden disk. And that's where we come from, and that's where we will go back to someday. But in the meantime, we stay here and create a lot of fantasies and some wisdom, trying to get people enlightened. And I hope you get a little more enlightened in this video today. So, yeah, I think that's all. The geographic Jerusalem, placed in Palestine, is just a mirror of the biblical myth, invented by the Bible writers with inspiration from the Milky Way Center. So everything is within this outline. Okay, that's all for now, folks. Any questions, feel free to comment below and I'll answer the best I can. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, take care. Bye.